Let's talk about 6 common myths about IELTS test. A lot of students I've seen focus on speaking, and I can understand it because they lack the speaking ability and they're not much confident about doing well in this section, as it's not easy to speak or answer questions continuously for about 11 to 15 minutes with fluency and without any mistakes. But during the process, they kind of ignore the other sections that are equally important. You need to remember one thing, that your overall score is defined by the individual score in each section, which means that even if you get a desired score in speaking, but you get a bad score in even one section, your overall score will still be average. So if you ever check the band of any IELTS test taker, 90% of the time he gets a lower score in writing compared to other sections, because writing indeed requires a lot of practice. So your goal should be is to focus on every section and practice doing all the sections even though you're confident in them. To score a high band in an IELTS test, you need to learn a lot of advanced vocabulary, phrasal verbs, idioms, and phrases. You might have heard this thing from a lot of people, which is not completely true. You don't necessarily have to learn advanced words in order to achieve a good score. Yes, you should try using synonym words in writing and speaking section. For example, I'm very hungry, you can say I'm starving. Or I'm very tired, you can say I'm exhausted. This way you can replace the common words with some synonym words, which is not so difficult. But a lot of IELTS aspirants focus too much on cramming up tons of new words and forget about the other basic skills such as fluency and context. Your primary focus is to work on your context and fluency if you are an intermediate student, because you're not going to get a good score if you use advanced vocabulary but fail to present your ideas in a confident or effective manner. A lot of students try to speak a lot in speaking section or write a long paragraph in the writing section, assuming that the more they speak or write, the better they will score, which is totally inaccurate. You need to understand that IELTS test is time-based and the test is prepared keeping in mind that there is limited time for each section for each student. So if you have to write for around 200 words, writing 250 words won't make any difference. In fact, it will consume more time and you might not get extra time to review or correct your mistakes. If you are able to present your thoughts and ideas in less words, then you don't necessarily have to write extra just to add more words. Yes, you should try to write close to 200 words if the minimum words mentioned are 200 in the instruction, but not a lot of words with unnecessary information, and same goes to speaking. You have to answer the question and elaborate them a bit, but if you think that you can keep on speaking for a long time, you are the one who is wasting time, because the examiner has a limited time to test your skills, and if you take 2-3 minutes in answering only one question just to give a longer answer to a question, then it makes no sense, and the chances are you won't get a higher score as you consumed a whole lot of time and the examiner couldn't evaluate you well. Remember that IELTS test is a way to test your English skills, not your knowledge. So try to keep it simple and don't try to make things complicated. Let me give you an example. Suppose you are taking the speaking test in your IELTS test, and in part 2 of the speaking test, you are given a topic where you get 1 minute to prepare the topic. Now suppose this is the topic. Describe a digital device you use in your daily life. It's a basic topic and you can speak really well if you're well prepared. Now what will you speak on this topic? I will choose a digital device which I'm familiar with and I have more information about, such as a smartphone or laptop, because I know that I can speak well about this digital device. However, some people will think that they should choose a digital device which is not so common to use, and for that reason they will decide to speak on something they have less information, and this is where they make a mistake. Why choosing or speaking on something you're not much familiar with? If I decide to speak on virtual reality goggles, it might sound great, but after a while I might run out of ideas. I have not used VR goggles much. So remember that you need to speak simply and not to try to make your answers complicated, as you get a good score on how you speak, not what you speak. It's important to listen to the questions well in a speaking test so that you can answer correctly. However, there might be a situation where you couldn't understand or hear the questions well, so you should always be attentive while the examiner is asking you a question. But what if you missed the question or if you were not able to comprehend it well? A lot of people suggest that you should never ask the examiner to repeat the questions as it affects your score, which is not entirely true. If you think that the question was not clear to you and you couldn't understand the language the examiner used, you should always ask him to repeat the question rather than assuming the question and answer incorrectly. Let's take an example. The examiner asks you this question: what multivitamins do you swear by? Now, if you don't understand the phrasal verb swear by, you can't answer this question. But if you don't ask the examiner to clarify the question and start answering something which is unrelated to the question, then you will get a negative impression, as the examiner will think that your level of comprehension is not good enough. So you need to ask the examiner, could you please repeat the question if you didn't hear it well in the first place? Or could you please rephrase the question if you didn't understand the meaning of the question? So he might rephrase it for you and ask it in a simple language, that is, what multivitamins do you trust in? Now you can answer the question accurately without any hesitation. So never shy away from asking any question, because it's better to answer correctly than giving a wrong answer to a question. Practice makes a man perfect. If you think that your English level is really good and you just go to the exam center to take the IELTS test without any preparation, trust me, you might not get a higher score no matter how good you are. An IELTS test is a standard testing system to measure your English skills, and there's some pattern, and if you are not familiar with the pattern, then you won't be able to do well on the exam. Because an IELTS test requires two things to succeed: your English skills and strategies to take the test. If you have not practiced enough, then you won't be familiarized with the type of question that are asked on the test, and you won't be able to get a good score because of the lack of practice. It's important to understand the pattern of each section and practice sample papers, so you know what kind of questions might be asked, and you can manage your time well and apply better strategies while taking the test. No matter how good a fighter you are, if you have not trained yourself good enough before the battle, you will definitely perish when a difficult situation arrives in front of you, because you didn't prepare for it. Here's the final tip about body language and confidence. There's one thing which you need to focus primarily if you have to score a good band in speaking, which is your body language and confidence. The way you speak and present your thoughts make a little difference in your final band that the examiner is going to give you at the end of the test. You might not be perfect, and you might make a few grammatical and pronunciation mistakes, and it's really unlikely that you might fix them immediately just before the test. Remember that speaking means good communication, and if you're able to get your ideas through the examiner clearly in an effective and confident manner, then you're going to get a decent band even though you make a few mistakes. So I hope you found this video useful, and if you are an IELTS aspirant too, thanks and good luck. Goodbye.